Afternoon and good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel and coffee stream, episode 406. I hope you're all enjoying the spring weather. If you are in fact in an area that is currently bestowing you with such, as I am finally. May was weird for the first half of it. It was March weather in May and May weather in March. It was very strange. But finally, spring weather is upon us here, and it's freaking absolutely beautiful. I went on an orientation and mobility lesson already, and that's why we're doing this now instead of at noon. So and it was a gorgeous sunny day. So I'm hoping everyone is at least enjoying that. We have some news and some stupid to look at. It's gonna be great. Hello, WR Costin, and hello, Dr. Functional. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're having a good day. I've got some articles to read and a video to watch. So we should be okay. And let's hope that VoiceOver doesn't do the up and down volume crap that it was doing on Friday, because that was really frustrating. But says functional. By the way, that was functional's message, was buts, as in see more. I'm assuming. And without further ado, let's open a second tab and go to Twitter. So before we get into the news, I forgot to say this on Friday. I was watching Question Period before the stream on Friday. And before they start asking questions of each other, they get up, the MPs get up and make statements of some kind. A declarative statement, or, they may thank a member of their community, or just something. And a member of parliament, I'm not sure what his name was or what riding he represented, I can't remember. But he stood up and he said that the the Canadian government needs to stop supplying Israel with arms, because Israel is genociding the Palestinians, and we need to hold Israel to account for the the humanitarian crisis that they're a part of in the Gaza Strip, and Palestinian lives matter. Now, that was probably the most ridiculous. Like, and I'm not saying that nobody, like, I've never said that anyone's life matters more than another person's, but to say, like, to just completely not even talk about the things that the Palestinians are doing. It's Israel's horrible. Like, just to say that Israel is just genociding a race of people, or like, and you can't. Palestinians are not a race. The country is named Palestine, therefore they are Palestinians. They're not, and Israel's not doing that. They're defending themselves. I was shocked. I was really shocked to hear a member of parliament say those words in the House of Commons. I was rather taken aback, and there was no noise in that room when he said that. Thankfully there was no cheering. But there was also, like, you could have heard a pin drop. It was if I remembered the timestamp, I would pull up the stream, or the after the replay of the stream on CPAC and play it for you guys, because it's rather crazy. But I actually can't believe that I forgot to mention that on because I was so outraged by that wording. It was awful. It made me very upset, and I can't believe I forgot to talk about that on Friday. So let's see here. We've got where am I here? Why did I close YouTube? That was stupid. That was very dumb. Okay. Can we increase the arms exports to Israel by redirecting the arms we're sending to Saudi Arabia? I like that idea, Costin. I really do. That is a fantastic idea. You should be the Minister of Defense. Okay. So, we're going to read this article. I have a couple of articles. There's one that I specifically want to save for Wednesdays with Skep this week. Because I have a feeling Skep Talk will have some great ideas on it. But we will read this article about Bill C-10, because that's been something that I've been talking about on this channel. So let's read this article here. I heard a blink. That means there's an ad somewhere. Okay, let's share this. StreamYard. Back to the StreamYard page. So, just for the shits and giggles of it, I looked up on Best Buy's website how much the PlayStation 5 is. The one where you put in the disc, fucking $630. I'm like, what the? Oh. And there's none in stores. It's order online only. Oops, not that one. That one. This one. There we go. So, this article's headline says... Heritage Minister encourages MPs to quickly pass Bill C-10. Yes, I'm sure you are encouraging the MPs. Yes, I'm sure that you are encouraging them. Encourage. Is that the word you're using now? Instead of badgering, bamboozling, coercing. Oh, okay. Let's read.
Ottawa Heritage Minister Stephen Guilbeault is calling for MPs to support Canadian creators and quickly pass Bill C-10, as he sought to defend the legislation's aims amid concerns about the implications the Broadcasting Act changes would have for everyday users of social media.
Yes, support Canadian creators and vote in this bill. Yeah, okay.
Testifying at the House of Commons Heritage Committee, which is studying Bill C-10 but had put the clause review on pause in an effort to gain clarity from the minister and other experts amid ongoing mixed messaging, Guilbeault said several times that the bill is meant to go after platforms, not people.
Okay, so when they say the clause-by-clause review, so when there's a new bill and a party has an issue with it, they can do what's called a clause-by-clause review, which is they go through it literally clause by clause and figure out what the hell this bill means. So they've put this on pause to gain more clarity from the ministers who crafted this bill. So it's that vague. Okay? It's written that vaguely that even when they take it apart, clause by clause, they have to go back to the drafters of the bill and go, what the fuck did you mean by this? That's a problem. That's a big problem.
I hope the committee will resume its work and quickly move Bill C-10 back to the House of Commons, he said.
I hope they will move Bill C-10 to the shredder.
The goal is not to regulate content generated by users, such as videos of our children, friends, and colleagues. It never was, and it never will be, offered Minister Guilbeault in French, noting that in his view, while some people may feel that any type of regulation for web giants is too much, the majority of Canadians support the idea.
Okay.
List one item.
They may support the idea of regulating web giants, but not having the ability to regulate our free speech shim-shammed into that bill as a sneaking point.
Bullet. Link. End of list. Our broadcasters, our production sector, and the culture sector as a whole are counting on this new legislative tool to continue to flourish on digital platforms. The bill is about restoring a balance that the arrival of the web giants has skewed very seriously in their own favor at the expense of local people and businesses, said the minister in French, going on to suggest that without the changes currently proposed, certain platforms could get away with just about anything.
Okay. Bill C-10 has not been enacted as law yet, and there's plenty of local Canadian content and business ads on my Facebook, on my Instagram, on my Twitter feed, on my TikTok. What the fuck are you talking about here, Mr. Guilbeault? There's a lot of it. It's already based on you know what this is? This is because Google's getting rid of their frickin' tracking cookies, I bet. That's what I bet this is. This is silly.
Through Bill C-10, the government is seeking to make changes aimed at ensuring major social media platforms and streaming services such as Netflix, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify promote and pay their fair share towards Canadian artists and are held to similar standards as regular broadcasters. You are currently...
Okay. But why does everything else have to be... Why does all the other extra language have to be in there? And how do you expect... Like, do you really expect TikTok to pay you? Do you really expect you? Oh, wow. You're special.
The bill has been embroiled in controversy after the Liberals removed and refused to reinstate an exemption from the bill that protected individuals' online content from its proposed Broadcasting Act, prompting the free speech concerns.
Yeah, exactly. They removed and refused to sorry. Let's reread that just because it's an important part of this article.
The bill has been embroiled in controversy after the Liberals removed and refused to reinstate an exemption from the bill that protected individuals' online content from its proposed Broadcasting Act, prompting the free speech concerns.
Yeah. So there was an exemption for individual content, and the Liberals removed it from the bill, and they're refusing to reinstate it, and yet they're insisting that this will not affect individuals. Because, we're all idiots. and we can't figure this out.
The government continues to point to a separate regulation exemption for individual users that remains intact, and subsequent amendments have sought to specify scope of the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission's, CRTC, new powers under Bill C-10.
So, they're instead of reinstating that exemption, they're pointing to a differently worded one. I really need to try and slog my way through Bill C-10. It is so hard to go through legalese with a screen reader, but I really should slog my way through Bill C-10 just to see the full scope of it.
Though, the discoverability aspect of those regulatory powers means that the CRTC could play a role in putting guidelines in place around what platforms algorithms could suggest users watch or listen to next on social media or streaming platforms, which free...
Oops. Sorry.
Though, the discoverability aspect of those regulatory powers means that the CRTC could play a role in putting guidelines in place around what platforms algorithms could suggest users watch or listen to next on social media or streaming platforms, which free speech advocates continue to say will have implications for the content Canadians are seeing. You are currently on
They're not wrong, because the bigger your channel is, the more you're going to get pushed. So the smaller channels are not going to be seen. Okay.
Despite the wording of the bill, in an interview on CTV's Question Period that aired on Sunday, Guilbeault suggested that under Bill C-10, the CRTC could have powers related to the discoverability of online content for people whose channels have millions of viewers, are generating a lot of money on social media, and are acting like broadcasters. You are currently on a text element.
You mean
inside
like
web
Rebel
content.
Media?
To exit this web area,
You
press
mean like
Control,
Rebel
Option,
Media?
Shift, up arrow?
Mr. Guilbeault, is that who you mean? Channels like that? That's a little transparent.
This. You are link. Suggestion was walked back and clarified by his office by Monday morning, confirming that the regulatory powers would be focused on the platforms and not those who upload content to them.
I bet that was walked back really quickly.
Ahead of the controversy sparking off, the bill had the backing of opposition MPs, particularly the NDP and Bloc Québécois, but on Friday NDP MP and Canadian heritage critic Heather McPherson made her frustrations clear.
All right.
I have to express my disappointment in the way that you've managed the creation and the communications around this legislation. I, for one, am looking forward to continuing to work as hard as we can to get this legislation fixed, to get this legislation through this committee. But I think a lot of it unfortunately does have to fall with you, Minister, with all due respect, she said. Your mishandling of the bill has put all of us on this committee in a very difficult position. If we don't get this right, the legislation will be challenged in court, and it will not be applied for years, which will put all of our cultural sector at a real disadvantage.
She is not wrong. She is absolutely on point here. This was severely mishandled from the get-go, miscommunicated by the minister. And again, if she's right, if this is not hammered out and understood and clarified right now, it will be challenged in court and it will be successful. And it will take years to apply new standards that, you know what, they do need to be applied. Now that media is shifting from television and radio to the internet, there does need to be an update. But it needs to be very clear, it needs to be very concise, and it needs to be understood by everybody. And this bill has done none of those things. And the heritage minister in charge has been very vague and very uncommunicative about this bill. And this MP who made this statement is correct. He has put the committee in a very hard position. Because they have to not only understand this bill, which it seems like it was written vaguely as vaguely as possible on purpose, they have to fix it. They basically have to do his job for him and rewrite this bill, so that it does protect Canadian broadcasters and content creators, but so that it's not treating, everyday, random YouTubers and Instagrammers like a freaking radio station or a TV station. That's outrageous.
In response, Guilbeault pointed to the long list of stakeholders who represent Canada's creators and cultural industries, including writers and musicians, who support Bill C-10 as it stands. He did not offer suggestions on how he intends to rectify the persisting concerns among Canadians, whether founded or perceived. You are correct.
Writers and musicians, yes, because those are the only people that create content. It's only writers and musicians. It's not artists. It's not commentary commentary creators. It's not small journalists. It's not videography. It's none of those things. It's only writers and musicians. Jesus Christ.
Later in the meeting, under questioning from Conservative MP and digital government critic Rachel Harder, Guilbeault was unable to say with certainty whether certain examples of movies were considered Canadian content.
Wow.
Minister, you keep talking about wanting to protect Canadian content and further Canadian culture, but yet I just listed two films, Ultimate Gretzky and Canadian Bacon, which should be classified as Canadian content. They're not. And Minister, you're not even able to identify that. So what confidence should Canadians have in your ability to legislate this? Ask harder.
That's again, very good question. If he can't identify, if he can't identify Canadian content himself, how is he supposed to be able to do anything that he's trying to do?
In response, he suggested that if opposition parties see issues with the bill, that's what the clause-by-clause legislative amendment process is for.
Well, okay, but you've written such a vague piece of crap that people who are trying to do this review keep coming back to you and going, okay, what did you mean by this? And you're just going, stuff. I meant stuff. It's outlandish, Minister. It really is. It's absolutely ridiculous.
The committee is now facing a time crunch, with 4 scheduled sitting weeks left in the parliamentary calendar to pass any bills before the prospect of a summer or fall election resulting in the session being ended and any unpassed bills dying.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that there is going to be an election. If not a summer election, definitely a fall election.
McPherson asked Guilbeault whether he will commit to giving the committee the time it needs to get Bill C-10 right and ensuring it passes before an election is called. The minister said the Liberals do not want an election.
That's not an answer. That is not an answer, sir. I'm just telling you right now.
The committee had also called for Justice Minister David Lametti to testify, but he declined that invitation and sent departmental officials on his behalf. On Thursday, the Federal Justice Department issued a revised look at whether the amendment made to the bill infringed on Canadians' rights. The Link Department stated that in its view, the amendments to Bill C-10 would not restrict the freedom of expression of social media users under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Okay.
This didn't satisfy some MPs on the committee, with opposition MPs still pushing to have Lametti appear.
Yeah, because they want the actual guy who helped write this bill. They don't want some staffers.
Advertisement. Related. Minister of Canadian Heritage Stephen Guilbeault is seen via /1_. Minister of Canadian Heritage Stephen Guilbeault is seen via video. End of.
Is this the
Previous item in carousel.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's the update on Bill C-10. I'm sure there will be more in the coming days that we will look at. So let's jump over to some more articles. Okay. All right. Hello, Michael Hadfield. Welcome, sir. Okay. And we will save the video I have for the end. So I read on Friday that Greyhound Canada was permanently suspending its routes. So this article is an update, I guess, to that story. So we're going to read this. Okay. Share screen. So we have this story right here. And the headline says, Canadian bus companies have plans to fill the gap left by Greyhound. And this is from the CBC, I believe. And it's written by Don Pittis. Yep, CBC, May 15th. So let's take a listen and a look here.
Almost every Canadian of a certain age can remember the first long bus ride that took them off on a youthful adventure.
Yep.
In the case of your correspondent, part of the journey as a tender 17-year-old was on the exotically named Grey Goose Lines, which dropped me on a lonely highway somewhere east of Atikamekw, ONT, for a summer job as a junior forest ranger. You are
Oh, cool.
while Greyhound Canada's visited link announcement of its final departure. York Chrome has new window from southern Ontario and Quebec this week may have come as a shock to people who depend on the service. Those in the know say the company's loss may have a silver lining. You are current. Early reports that the Hound's disappearance sounds the death knell for an outmoded system of transportation are simply not true, said Terence Johnson, National President of Transport Action Canada.
Okay.
Buses still matter for people who don't drive or have access to a car, and to connect communities where airlines are too expensive or non-existent.
That's very true. I went and took a bus to see a friend a couple of years back so that Pincolo didn't have to spend money on a toll road and take a day off to drive me to see my friend. I took the bus. And it's absolutely not an outdated mode of transportation.
Now, Johnson says Greyhound's departure could be the catalyst for a new coast-to-coast bus network formed by an interlocking group of domestic bus companies from both East and West, provided the federal government is ready to help.
That's true.
A lot of Canadian companies don't mind seeing the back of Greyhound, said Johnson, who sees the bounce back following the pandemic as a moment to transform and improve Canada's transportation system.
Agreed.
On a text element.
That would be a perfect time. If money spent in the right areas, judiciously, could definitely help. And if you have greener buses, I'm not saying electric buses or anything, but a bus with a better mileage, you could make them a bit more environmentally friendly. It could absolutely be a time to revamp the national transportation system of bus lines.
Heading level 2. Regional players ready. That transformation may not be immediate. Johnson said there may be a shakeout period as new bus services fill the gap left by the U.S. carrier, at a time when they're already struggling with a crash in traffic due to COVID-19 restrictions.
Yeah.
But these are not inexperienced startups. They're established regional players, and when you start looking, there are more of them than you might realize. You are currently on Thursday, just as Greyhound announced its departure, Ryder Express, a company founded in Saskatchewan after the province shut down the STC bus service, posted this notice. Ryder Express. You are correct. Already, companies across the country are looking at how to get a piece of what they see as the lucrative central Canadian market for both passenger service and parcel delivery.
Okay, parcel delivery. I didn't consider that.
Already. Just as Grey Goose Lines expanded out of a small startup in the 1920s in Sperling, Maine, before being ultimately swallowed up by Greyhound and closed, there appears to be no shortage of strong regional companies looking to take Greyhound's place. Ryder Express is coming to Ontario and Quebec, says. Link. A notice on the company's website.
Okay.
Chrome posted on the same.
Cool.
Posted on the same day Greyhound announced it was pulling out. As a truly Canadian company, Ryder Express will be able to connect across Canada with a single bus ticket.
Oh, cool.
Heading level 2. Success where Greyhound failed. You are currently on a heading level 2. But how could a company that started small in Saskatchewan after the province canceled the money-losing provincial Saskatchewan Transportation Company in 2017 make money where Greyhound could not?
Probably by not charging an arm and a leg for an uncomfortable bus ride.
According to Ryder's general manager, Omer Kenka, after years of serving relatively sparsely peopled routes between Vancouver and Winnipeg, the Windsor-Toronto-Montreal corridor will be rich pickings.
Like a gold mine. It is a huge gold mine for passenger and parcel.
The fact that we achieve this in these areas itself proves that our business model is much better than Greyhound, Kenka said. A Ryder Express bus in Calgary, the Saskatchewan. You are currently on a text element. Almost every Canadian of a certain age can remember.
Okay, did it? Yeah, it took me back up to the beginning. So yeah, no, that's good that there are Canadian-owned companies that are stepping up to fill the gap, because Greyhound was a U.S. company, and I think while import and export and trade among countries is necessary in our economy and our society, I think it is more important to also try to support our in-country domestic products and services as much as we can, especially right now because of the severe economic hit that everyone has taken from COVID. So that's that is one of the stories I have for you guys. Let's take a look here for one of the other few stories I have. Where are we here? So this is an opinion piece about lockdowns. Hello, useless rebel. How are you, sir? Okay. Let's get us back to StreamYard so I can share the screen. Okay. Tab, 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 tab. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was a gorgeous, gorgeous day. It still is. It's just so sunny and warm, and there's a breeze. It's freaking gorgeous outside. Finally. It has been rainy and just gross. Alive and kicking. Good. Good. Alive and kicking is good. Okay. Where are we here? Breadcrumb. I don't want breadcrumb. So this is by somebody named Levy. Lockdown madness is just crazy. You're not kidding. Okay, where are we here? Sue Ann Levy is the author, and this is published yesterday, May 16th. So this is a picture of off-limits beach volleyball courts in Toronto because of the stay-at-home order. Okay, let's take a listen.
When I heard Dr. Anthony Fauci, the champion of perennial lockdowns, tell Face the Nation Sunday morning that vaccinations protect one from catching or spreading the COVID-19 virus, I realized just how far our own politicians and health officials have gone. You are currently on...
Yeah, when you hear when Anthony Fauci is making sense, yeah.
Just a few days ago, the CDC south of the border also announced that masks are no longer required indoors for those who are fully vaccinated. You are currently on a text element.
And here Teresa Tam is like, no, you still need to wear the mask, and you should probably do that also while you're having sex.
America is opening up. But here in Canada, our leaders are still obsessed with surreal draconian lockdowns that have forced small business to stay shut for more than 260 days since the pandemic began 14 months ago and could, according the rules...
Oops. Sorry?
But here in Canada, our leaders are America is opening up.
Where am I?
But here in Canada,
there we are.
The rules are selective and...
But here in Canada,
our leaders are still obsessed with surreal draconian lockdowns that have forced small business to stay shut for more than 260 days since the pandemic began 14 months ago and could, according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, CFIB, lead to 1 in 5 Ontario businesses going bankrupt. You are currently on a tech...
Wow, 1 in 5. That is insane. 1 in 5 small businesses in Ontario. Wow.
The rules are selective and punitive and make no sense. You are currently on a...
No, they don't make any sense at all. They
are not permitted to enjoy the nice weather on tennis courts or golf courses or even roam our parks. Children are going stir crazy not being able to enjoy our playgrounds or basketball courts.
And there are a lot of people in neighborhoods just straight up not listening. Like, there are always people at the basketball courts, at the school. There's a school near us, and there's people always at the basketball courts. There's people always at the neighborhood park. There's always people on the sidewalks, walking around, and not very many of them are masked. You can, even if you're blind, you can hear, you can hear the muffled voice of a mask wearer, and not very many of the people in my neighborhood are wearing masks anymore. Especially outside. A lot of us are doing it, inside stores, just so there's no argument. But, outside in the park, there are very few people that are masked. Good. Basketball is great exercise. It is. It's amazing exercise. And, we took the boys out yesterday. The oldest, my sister, gave him her old scooter. Those little razor ones that you you stand on with one foot and you push yourself. Yeah, she gave him her old one. And he was riding that, and then the youngest was riding his new bike that he got for his birthday. It was the first day that he was able to ride his bike because the weather's been so shit. And he loved it. At first he was like, "No thanks, I don't want to ride it." And then, Pincalo kind of helped him figure out the pedals and, gave him a little push and got him going, and then he was just off. He rode that thing for a good 45 minutes. It was great. I refuse to wear a mask outside. Yeah, so do I, Costin. So do I. No point. Absolutely no point. Like, in the wintertime, the gaiters that we wear are cool because they also act like balaclavas, right? You just pull it up around your face and your face is nice and warm. But in the summer, absolutely not. There's no way I'm gonna wear a mask outside. No. So let's see here.
Heading level 2. Advertisement.
No, I don't want the advertisement.
Story continues below. Third-party ad content. This advertisement has heading level 2. Article content. Here I thought fresh air and exercise. Here I thought fresh air and exercise helped keep up one's immunity and well-being.
Well, that's just silly to think that, Miss Levy. You need to be sedentary and suffering from psychosis and cabin fever in order to keep yourself healthy. Yeah, that's the new medical opinion. Sitting on your ass, going out of your mind with loneliness and depression and anxiety is the new way to stay healthy. Hello, Maddie.
While concert and other venues are opening south of the border, we've seen signature events canceled in Toronto for the second summer in a row.
Yep.
York?
Yep, we have.
Yeah, it is quite okay for 5,000 pro-Palestine protesters to pack Nathan Phillips Square, many unmasked and situated very close together, as they did Saturday night. It is quite fine for encampments to thrive in our parks, and the tent dwellers permitted to roam wherever they wish, while ordinary citizens were banned, by fences and crime scene tape, from looking at cherry blossoms at High Park. York?
Yep. All of that is true. There was a huge pro-Palestine march in Toronto on Saturday night, and she's right. A lot of them were packed in and unmasked. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous and hypocritical.
I can only imagine how little weary Canadians will listen on Victoria Day weekend if the weather is warm and sunny. You are currently on a text element.
Right?
YouTube. Our politicians talk incessantly about the need to get vaccinated to stop the spread, on TV, on Twitter feeds, in news stories, and during press conferences. You are currently on it. But here I sit writing this column fully vaccinated with Moderna from Palm Beach County, considered a pariah because I had the gall to drive my wife and 3 dachshunds home from Florida last week. You are... You'd think our governments would be happy that too fewer people need to draw from the country's limited supply of vaccine. Limited because Prime Minister Justin Trudeau botched up the acquisition so badly, verging on criminally. You are...
Yep.
Yeah, we've been punished by the powers that be, stuck in 14 days of quarantine during which we are forced to check in daily with a federal app about whether we are feverish. No, I don't have a fever. I've been vaccinated. Silly people. You are currently on a text element.
Jesus fucking Christ. This is... Oh. This is... Oh my god. This is ridiculous.
Heading level 2. Story continues. Third-party ad content. This advertisement has not... Heading level 2. Chrome has new window. I have been called twice now and asked to respond to a series of recorded questions asking whether I've complied with the federal quarantine rules. You are currently... On Tuesday, we'll be forced to take our day 8 switch health test, which will no doubt come back negative as the other two did, including the PCR test we took a week ago in South Carolina, and which wasn't even reviewed at the border. You are currently on a text element. We'll go through this 14-day charade, as many others who've been vaccinated outside Canada have also done, only because federal government officials are quite happy to suck and blow, telling us to get vaccinated and the world will open up, but not accepting vaccination records from outside the country.
Yep. Yep, exactly. They refuse to do this, to accept if you've been vaccinated in the US. They don't care. But we need to support our enemies, even if that comes at our own expense, says Costin. Yep.
We'll suffer hateful comments from the indoctrinated who have not traveled about being self-centered, as if travelers are the sole source of the dreaded pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Switch Health reported to me a few days ago that a mere 1% of travelers tested on day 1 and on day 8 at Pearson Airport and land borders were COVID positive. You are heading level 2. More on the list in a new...
That's the... This is why people are getting so fed up with these lockdowns. They're not working. They never worked. And when the country that had more cases of COVID than we did people is opening up again, and we're not, that's a problem. Our officials are freaking out because there are about 15 million people in Ontario. All right, less than 1,000 of them are in the ICU. Now, it sucks that anybody has to go to the ICU. All right, but that's a pretty good statistic for a pandemic. We need to open up. We need to have the economy moving again. We need to have people moving again. Being locked away has made people just go absolutely insane. There are so many, we like we keep saying here on this show, suicides are up, drug overdoses are up, depression is up, so much so that there is now a mandate that there is free access to online counseling for all Ontarians right now because of the pandemic. There are so many people that need to talk to somebody that there is now mandated free counseling for people. It is laughable, Maddie. It's been proven that there's less of a chance of transmission if you're outside. You're right, Maddie. And it's so frustrating that all you can do right now is laugh. That's all you can do, because if you don't, you will kill somebody. We are at this point in Canada where we have to laugh about this or we're going to get homicidal. And it's scary. COVID has a 98 to 99% survival rate, says Maddie. And people are losing their shit. Exactly. We are social creatures. We need social interaction. Yes. Yes. And we need in-person social interaction. Online interaction is awesome to be able to make a Discord call or, get on a stream with some people, jump on in a PlayStation party and play some games or whatever. That's not the same as physically going up to somebody, shaking their hand, giving them a hug, whatever it is. And it's we need that as human beings, as social animals. We absolutely need that. It is so frustrating that our government just, and you can tell our government wants this to keep going. You can tell. It's disgusting that our government that we put in power wants us scared, and because when your people are scared, your people will want you to have more power to protect them. And that's what they want. They want us to be scared so that so that we will give them the power to control us. And what's fucked up is that if I were to say that even 6 or 7 years ago, I would be labeled insane and a conspiracy theorist. And now look at what's going on. There's no possible way you can deny that that's what's going on. Even if you aren't immured in constant news commentary the way, people like me and, Ranting Monkey and Sinatra and all, like, even people offline are starting to go, this is a little, I don't know how much longer they think they can get away with this. So, here is a story about a UPS fuck up. So this headline here says, UPS shipping bungle keeps oxygen device from family sick with COVID-19. Oh, wow. Fantastic. So this is from CBC News, posted today, May 17th, sorry. So let's take a listen here.
Eva Oxkis was in a race against time when she went to a UPS store in January, anxious to get what she hoped would be a life-saving package to her family in Mexico. You are currently on a text element.
Oh, wow. Shipping oxygen to Mexico.
Her relatives were going through a terrible time, many of them sick with COVID-19. Her grandma near death. Medical care and supplies were scarce in the area. You are currently on a text. It was awful, the Calgary woman told Go Public. There were resellers, selling oxygen tanks for 4 or 5 times the price. So people who don't have the money, they would die because they didn't have that option.
Jesus Christ. Gotta love people with no morals.
Oxkis took matters into her own hands and bought a $2,400 oxygen concentrator for her family, a device that removes nitrogen from ambient air and turns it into a pure form of oxygen.
$2,400.
To make sure the package got to them as quickly as possible with no trouble for her family, she worked out the details for more than an hour with the franchise owner of a Calgary UPS store.
Wow. That's good on her for the dedication to her family. That's a huge price tag.
Oxka says she was desperate to get the device to her ailing grandmother, seen here, and other relatives, submitted by Eva Ox.
I bet.
But despite that, and paying $1,263 for quick shipping and insurance, the package got tied up in Mexico over a missing permit needed for medical equipment, a permit UPS later admitted it should have told her about.
Oh my god, that's almost $4,000 in total. So $2,400 for the device and $1,243 for shipping. So it's like $3,700. And UPS couldn't even be bothered to tell her about the medical permit that she needed, for the medical equipment permit she needed. Hello, Wikipedia snippet. Wow, that's this poor woman.
But the departments involved refused to take responsibility. She says, "You are..."
Of course. Because nobody ever does, right? When it's the corporate fuck up, they never want to take the responsibility, right? But you make one little mistake and you're trying to commit fraud or some shit like that.
List one item. Got a stop link. Team. End of list. It was a time-consuming bureaucratic bungle at a critical moment. Oxcus's grandmother died the day the package was shipped. Still, she kept trying to get it released for her other sick family members, even hiring customs brokers, but nothing worked. Chrome has new window.
That's horrible. That's so sad.
The brokers told her getting the Mexican permit could take months, if she got one at all. Oxcus says if UPS had told her that, she would have sent money instead.
Yeah.
It's been many sleepless nights, Oxcus said. My grandma passed. Everybody was sick. A stressful time. Meanwhile, UPS was not answering me and not being accountable. It was a very difficult situation. You are...
That is awful. I feel so bad for this woman because yeah, she could have just sent them the money to get the tank. Had she sent them the money, they could have purchased the tank and gotten rid of the middleman. That's really awful. Those oxygen concentrators have a tendency to break easily too, says Wikipedia snippet. He says, "Hey, Sir Adamantine." He says, "I live in an apartment building with a lot of old people." Ah. Yeah, that's sad.
She expected to have been told about something as important as the permit, for good reason.
Well,
you are currently on a text
yeah,
element.
that's due diligence on the part of the shipper. To notify somebody of all the permits that they need to ship something. Like, you would think that that as the shipping company, they would tell the person giving them the money to ship the item all of the permits that would be required for their item to be shipped. Medical oxygen is a racket. I bet it is. I could see how it could be a complete racket.
Oxcus says the store's owner assured her everything was covered. After things went wrong, two UPS customer service agents told her it was the store's responsibility to inform her of any shipping requirements. And the UPS store's website, at the time, assured customers its shipping experts will inform you at the time of transaction of any restrictions that may cause problems.
As it's their due diligence to. Like, if you are shipping something to somewhere, you would expect that the company you're paying to ship knows what's required and what documents you need and to provide you with those documents. That's their job.
Listen, vertical line Oxcus. Play media talk. To UPS reps admit to Eva Oxcus and her husband that they should have been notified about the missing permit for the medical device they tried to ship. 0. So, customers often rely on the information they get from service agents or what's in the marketing material on company websites, believing that's what they can expect, not realizing that the formal agreements can say something very different. According to consumer lawyer Scott Stanley. So whatever the person says to you at the point of sale is probably not going to form part of the contract, since contracts are highly engineered to benefit the company, not the consumer, said Stanley.
Yes.
I don't think it's fair. It leaves the consumer very much confused.
It's not, and it does leave them confused.
He points to the single paragraph in the 53 page.
53 pages!
Link. Terms and conditions of UPS Air Freight Services, which says clearing customs is the responsibility of the customer and/or recipient. Chrome has new window.
53 pages! 53 goddamn pages of a fucking terms of service agreement. Holy fuck. You'd think that, but not really, says Pincalo. Ah, I'm wrong.
UPS Canada's 18-page link. You are currently on a link. To click this link, link. Terms and conditions of service also say the contract is the final word, and anything customers are told verbally doesn't change that. You are currently...
So that's 18... Okay, so 18 pages for customs, or for UPS Canada, and 53 pages for the UPS General Terms of Service. Wow. That's insane. The infamous fine print. Yep.
Consumer lawyer Scott Stanley says companies should be required to write their terms and conditions in plain language that consumers can easily understand. CBC.
He's not wrong.
Heading level 2. By the time Oxkis was told the oxygen concentrator might never make it to her family, she was out more than $3,600, $2,400 for the device, and more than $1,200 in shipping and insurance charges, plus another $417 when she asked UPS to ship it back, so she could return it to the medical supply store.
Oh my God.
Adding insult to injury, when it came back, the box and the protective material inside were damaged.
Wow.
Despite the fragile stickers, the package was damaged when UPS finally returned it to Oxkis almost a month later. Submitted by Eva Ox.
That's... Wow. This is why when you go to ship anything internationally, especially hazardous material like oxygen, you use a customs broker firm, says Pincalo. Any and all paperwork to do with the transition between borders is the duty of the shipper, not the shipping company. Ah.
Eva Oxkis was in a race against time when
Oops.
Eva Oxkis was in a race
Oh my God.
UPS store in January, anxious to get what she hoped would be a life-saving package to
Okay, so it went up across. It went back up to the thing. See, that's what I mean by ever since Big Sur updated, voiceover overlaps now. If you move too quickly, it's kind of weird. Okay, let's see. I think I have one more. Oh, no, I don't. Now it's time for the video. And this is 9 minutes, and we're going to be pausing and reacting. So this is a Pierre Poilievre video. And this is talking about Bill C-15, which has to do with Indigenous and First Nations people. And he talks about you would be surprised how much shit I am not liable for. Like the bank fuck up with the $2 million check the other day. Oh yeah. The office manager of the law firm threatened to sue my company. I remember that, and she was talking like she was a lawyer. That was yeah. So this video, Pierre Poilievre is addressing the House of Commons and talking about how this government, while saying that it cares about the First Nations people and that it wants to help them, has not. And how the bill that they're trying to put forward would actually continue the colonialism that they say they are trying to combat. And I really want you guys to listen to how Pierre Poilievre talks here, because he speaks very precisely, and he tries very hard to not paint natives and the First Nations as victims. He's trying very, very hard here and doing a very good job of portraying them as people who want to overcome the past and with the resources, be given the resources that they need to educate, employ, and develop their land. And he speaks he's very, very careful not to belittle and victimize the First Nations people. And I really admire that, because a lot of the people in parliament and in politics tend to, and he will use this word a lot, paternalize or infantilize Native people. And he does call the system that we have right now paternalistic. And I do agree, and I've never been one to say that Canada hasn't treated its First Nations people very badly, because we have. We really have. And we need to change that. But the way Mr. Polyev presents this is not, we need to help the poor, the poor, childlike natives. It's, we need to empower them. We need to give them the resources. And let's take a listen, because I think you'll hear what I'm talking about.
It is an honor to rise on this important debate today. And I begin with a quote from the great Indigenous leader, Manny Jules. Quote, "Let me be a free man, free to travel, free to stop, free to work, free to trade where I choose, free to choose my own teachers, free to follow the religion of my fathers, free to talk, think, and act for myself." We forget often that these freedoms were enjoyed by the First Nations people before the arrival of Europeans.
Yep.
Of course, when Europeans came, they adopted a colonial and paternalistic and coercive relationship with the first peoples who had long before been here.
Now you'll notice how he words that. He doesn't, come in with the usual what guilty white, oh, we're horrible. He's speaking the facts. Yeah, we were coercive, we were paternalistic, and we acted as though they didn't have a system set up before we got here. And we need to own that and move on. And that's how he's this is how he's addressing it. And it's very well done. And you can tell he's very carefully trying to pick his words and not speak, put the natives as victims.
And who had been the owners of what we now call Canadian property. And they imposed a system that allowed governments and others, authorities, to dictate the destinies of First Nations who had prior been self-sufficient and had had very well-developed systems of trade, governance, and commerce that allowed them to provide for themselves. Now, Chief Jules, who is now in Kamloops and is one of the great intellectual leaders of First Nations across the country, would like to have those same freedoms restored. He points out that archaeological evidence of objects that predate the arrival of Europeans demonstrate that very sophisticated systems of trade, free trade, and free commerce existed between First Nations across the Americas well before Europeans came and formalized in law the European and in particular the Scottish understanding of markets.
See, he's doing a very good job of talking about historical fact here. He's not wallowing in guilt, but he's also not infantilizing a whole race of people. Hello, Lord Fairman from an hour in the future. He's doing a very good job of addressing this.
We see, for example, objects in one part of the Americas that could only have originated in other parts, meaning they must have been
pottery,
traded.
For example.
And so Chief Jules believes that the future for prosperity and opportunity for his people lies in restoring those freedoms that were taken away by so many ill-conceived, paternalistic, and colonial policies of the past. Unfortunately, this bill does not achieve that goal. To the contrary, it fails to extend and return those freedoms back to the First Nations people who rightly had them before. And Chief Jules points out that the achievements that are now well documented that predate Europeans, he says, and I quote, "Do you think this was all achieved through divine intervention from the gods, or was it because we somehow evolved into a natural socialist system that lasted 1,000 years? Both of these ideas are nonsense."
And he's right. It was hard work. It was often there was some bloody fighting going on between nations that didn't want to trade. It was not easy. And it took a long time to become the way it was.
End quote, he writes. And what he seeks today is a solution that would allow his people to be masters of their own destiny by controlling the economic decisions that affect their lives.
Right.
For example, right now the federal government takes $700 million of revenues from First Nations communities. That is the result of the work and the resource development that happens there.
$700 million from First Nations communities that resources are developed from. So we put natives onto little patches of land and tell them that that this is where they live. And then we take resources from there and don't give them, and then we also take the money from them as we develop the resources.
And then those same communities have to come to Ottawa and ask for some of that money back.
Yeah, they've basically made them a welfare state by developing resources and taking money and not allowing them to be responsible for, they're not making a system where First Nations can develop and refine these resources in tandem with these companies, or even work for these companies, get have jobs, have revenue, have education, have apprenticeships. They're forcing natives to have to take government handouts. It's disgusting. Reservations, yep. Exactly, Maddie. Exactly. You are absolutely right, Maddie.
What Chief Jules has proposed is to allow First Nations communities the autonomy to keep more of the revenues that they generate. That would allow more economic opportunities for jobs, to fund local clean water and healthcare and education initiatives.
Which, by the way, on the reserves are horrible. There are boil water advisories in 2021 for something like a good 3/4, I believe, of the First Nations reservations in Canada. It's ridiculous. The healthcare on the reserves is abominable. The education, a lot of people end up dropping out of school. It's there's no money for any better anything, and it's because of this system where the government has set up this welfare system where it's forcing the natives to have to run to the government for a handout because the government is busy taking the resources and the money from the First Nations people. And then making them have to come to Ottawa to go, please, sir, may I have some more?
In First Nations communities. But instead, this government has attempted to maintain the colonial system, which takes that money away from those to whom it naturally belongs, and then requires that they come to talk to politicians in Ottawa in order to get back what is rightfully theirs. Now, this paternalistic system is...
It's basically can I have my allowance, Mom? I've done my chores. I've given you the wood and the oil and the water and the metal and the whatever. I've done my chores. Can I please have my allowance now, Mom? That's basically what this is.
Is not limited to taxation. The regulatory obstacles that the federal government imposes on resource and commercial development in First Nations communities is more obstructive than is imposed in neighboring non-First Nations communities. I'm splitting my time with the member for St. Albert Edmonton. And so that means that it is more difficult for communities that want to develop commerce and industry to provide for their people to do so. So he proposes to allow more autonomy in First Nations communities and less interference from the governments in Ottawa and in the provincial capitals. Naturally, if we want to allow First Nations to regain the freedoms that they lost with the arrival of the Europeans, this proposal is entirely justified.
Yeah.
Furthermore, leaders like Chief Bear in Saskatchewan have said that the federal government should work with willing First Nations who want to change land use policies to allow their residents to buy a home and collateralize it to get a mortgage.
Yeah, right now that's not a thing that can happen. So there are natives that legitimately cannot buy a home and collateralize it for a mortgage. This is actually a thing that still happens. There are just the infantilization of the natives, and there are a lot more native groups that want to actually work with the federal government to regain their past autonomies, and a lot more natives that are telling some of their own people to stop living in the past. And yes, there were some treaties that were awful, and they not only were they awful, but they weren't even upheld. And yes, that was wrong. But you're not going to get anywhere by hating the white man, and you need to stop hating, basically hating the past that you had that you don't even remember. There are a lot of native people making those statements. Big Daddy, exactly. Wikipedia snippet.
That would allow more First Nations to develop net equity,
Yeah.
the collateral and the credit rating that would allow them to build into the future. You can't start a business if you do not have collateral to get a small business loan. But because of the, again, colonial nature and the paternalistic nature of the Ottawa knows best system we now have, it is very difficult for many First Nations to achieve that basic right that every other Canadian off reserve can aspire to achieve.
Yeah. So you have people on reserve who want to better their lives, build up a future, possibly open a business, and they can't because they can't even have a mortgage for their home. So they have no collateral for a business loan. They have no credit. They have and no ability to build credit. And again, this means they have to run to the government for handouts to live, and they have to go to the government for, government housing because they can't, afford a bit, like they can't run their own business, and they can't, it's like I said, it's forced welfare state.
Furthermore, we see a double standard from this government, and in fact, from all of the political parties except the one of which I'm a member, and that is on the issue of resource development. None of the other parties are interested in the views of First Nations on resource development, unless it is to use them to block those projects.
Yeah.
For example, we look at the Northern Gateway Pipeline, a project that was supported by 75% of the First Nations communities along the pipeline route.
Yep.
It would have generated $2 billion in wages and other benefits for First Nations people, and it would have had a First Nations president and CEO overseeing it.
Now just imagine that for a second. $2 billion for those communities. Okay. Jobs for those people. A First Nations president and CEO, so representation in the energy sector for First Nations. And the government was like, and 75% of the communities wanted this. 75% of the Native communities along the pipeline were like, yes, let's do this. And the government listened to the 25%. Because the liberals are trying to go with this whole, the earth is going to explode in 12 years if all of us don't stop driving cars, or some stupid, ridiculous fear-mongering. And so they used the 25% of the natives that agreed with them to block a project that would have lifted even those 25% that didn't want this pipeline. It would have lifted them out of poverty too. And the government was just like, nah. It's cool.
It would have allowed young First Nations to get positions as apprentices so they could become welders, pipe fitters, and obtain their Red Seal certification in many other high-paying, in-demand trades positions.
Exactly.
But what did this Prime Minister do? Without honoring the duty to consult First Nations that is embedded in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, he killed the project and vetoed it, even after extensive environmental approvals had been granted by independent, non-partisan authorities, and even though 32 of 40 First Nations communities supported it. According to David Swampy, who is the national president of the National Coalition of Chiefs, which has as its singular mandate to defeat on-reserve poverty by allowing more development, he said that this Bill C-15, quote, adds to the confusion about who has the authority to provide or deny consent on behalf of Indigenous peoples, be it chief or council, hereditary chiefs, or small groups of activists. It also implies that a single nation can deny consent, a veto in practice, if not in name, on projects that cross dozens of territories, be they pipelines, railroads, or electric transmission lines, end quote. Now, is that not exactly the kind of colonialism we should be against, where 19 communities support a project and one does not?
Yeah. That
the 19 are overpowered by one having the veto power? That is not the kind of opportunity and freedom that First Nations should enjoy. Every day, First Nations people want the opportunity that we all have to work, to gain employment, to supply benefits to their own communities. And we should allow those communities the freedom to extend those opportunities. Madam Speaker, this bill does not do so, but let us work together with all First Nations in the spirit of allowing them to fulfill their dreams and their ambitions. Thank you.
Now, I am very happy with that speech. I think he presented the I think he presented the argument very fairly. I think he was intelligent about it, and he made some very good points with some actual backed up evidence and writings from actual First Nations chiefs who, as I was saying before, there are many Native communities that want to be, gainfully, they have gainful employment for their people, have good education, good health care, and they don't want it just handed to them, right? They want to work for it. They want to be able to be given the resources so that they can work. They, to use a biblical analogy, they want to be taught to fish. Okay, they don't want the loaf. They don't want a fish for a day, right? They want the ability to have their children have a future. They want their children not to be high school dropouts, to go, do whatever work they can find to help support the family. They want their kids to finish school. They want their kids to have clean water that you don't have to boil. They want their kids to be able to learn a trade or whatever. The same thing that we would all want for our kids, right? And they don't want the government to give it to them anymore. They don't want the monthly handout in a check. They want to work with the government to develop the plan for actual autonomy and actual ability to provide for themselves. That's what they want. And the Liberals, in their racist, it's quite the same as the Democrats in the way that they are acting towards the Black community in the States. It's the Liberals and the NDP are acting like, those poor First Nations, they have no idea how to how to live, how to work, how to, they need our help, those poor people. Before we showed up, they were just roving bands of nomads, who had no culture and nothing. Like, that's how the Liberals are acting, and it's the same way that the Democrats in the States treat Black people. It's disgusting, and it's racist. And I really appreciate how Mr. Polyev chose his words and was very careful to, in his speech, paint the Natives as a people who are done being victims, who are done taking handouts, and who want to move on and be a proud people, and because they are. It's like giving them smallpox infected blankets. Oh, Pink Hollow, but you're not wrong. I think that was a very well delivered speech with quotes from chiefs to back his points up. And again, another shot out of the park from Mr. Polyev in the House of Commons. And that's gonna bring us, guys, to the end of the stream. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves, and I hope you guys can get out if it's nice and sunny and enjoy the weather today. And be sure to come back and hang out with me on Twitch tomorrow at between 1:30 and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link to Twitch is at the top of my link tree, which is in the description of the stream. And we'll be back there with some Beat the Blind Girl. And of course, it is Wednesdays with Skep this week. So join Skep Talk and I at 12 o'clock on Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern. And of course, catch me on Minions of the Zoo tomorrow night. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you on Twitch tomorrow.